The presentation of today's racing program is a copyrighted broadcast of the New York Racing Association, Incorporated. Any rebroadcast, recreation, or retransmission of this broadcast without the expressed written consent of the New York Racing Association, Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Aqueduct. At this time, we ask that you please rise, remove your caps as we honor America with the national anthem. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Live Racing from Aqueduct. The track is sloppy. Set to kick off a Friday of racing action here from Aqueduct. Here are today's early scratches and changes. Race 1 is the start of the early pick 5. The 2 is a Ridgeling. The 2 is a Ridgeling in today's first. Race 2, start of the early pick 4 is clear. No changes in today's second. In race 3, scratch the 2, Honest Banker. Scratch the 4, Curlin's Choir. Scratch the 2 and the 4 in today's third. In race 4, the pick 6 starts in today's fourth, and please note that post time for race number 4 will be 1:50 p.m. Race 5 is the start of the late pick 5. Post time for race number 5 will be 2:22 p.m. Scratch the 3, Via Regia. Scratch the 5, Gagliano. Scratch the 3 and the 5 in today's fifth. Race 6, start of the late pick 4. Post time is 2:52 p.m. Scratch the 1, Tater and Tot. Scratch the 1 in today's sixth. Race 7, post time, will be 3:24 p.m. Post time for race 7, 3:24 p.m. Race 8, post time will be 3:50 p.m. Post time 3:50 p.m. And the 8 wears a hood again in today's 8. Race 9, post time will be 4:15 p.m. Scratch the 1, No Burn. Scratch the 1 in today's 9th. Those are the early scratches and changes for Live Racing from Aqueduct. The track is sloppy, and coming up next, we'll be talking horses with Andy Serling and Sarah El-Badwi.
morning, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Andy Sterling, joined by a special guest. Sarah Al-Badwi is joining us for her first time on Talking Horses. Welcome to the show.
Excited to be on. It's my debut performance.
We're excited to have you here. Looking forward to joining us. Some of you may be familiar with Sarah. You may know her from Twitter. You might know her from her work before with Horse Racing Nation. Did a lot of videos. We all had the pleasure. I did a video with you. Greg did a video with you. Did Anthony do a video with you, or just
no? Maggie did.
Maggie did a video with
yep.
you. So a lot of us had a chance to work with you, and we're really excited to have Sarah joining us for today's show. I will try not to pick on her too much. We did pick some of the same horses, so. I can only pick on myself in some of these cases. You have to head over to NYRA Bets. If you're not a member of NYRA Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code MATCH200 and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. We have a $15 bonus today. If you, well, wait, that'll have to wait. Middle pick 4. We have a 9-race card today. That starts in race number 3. Pick 4s in races 2, 3, and 6. There's the $15 bonus. If you bet $75 or more on both Aqueduct and Tampa, I think we'll be showing the 9th race at Tampa on America's Day at the Races. We'll give you $15, win, lose, or draw. And finally, America's Day at the Races, 2:30 to 5:30 today. Greg Wolf is back in town, actually. So we haven't seen Greg in a few weeks. And we'll be on 2:30 to 5:30. Action from here, as well as Oakland Park in that 9th race from Tampa as well. Race number 1 is going to be interesting to see whether it's a first-time starter or a horse that started. And I think of the horses that have started, the only horse that'll probably take some money and is 2-1 right now, but it's obviously very early, is Mo Than Luck. I didn't want to take this horse. I'm going to guess that there's a better first-time starter than Mo Than Luck.
I just really didn't love this race in particular. We have a Iya who he's kind of been stopping significantly, and last time I feel was really the worst one, where he just backs up in that field. I don't like that the horse that won was able to outclose Mo Than Luck on the outside, even though that one was much more experienced and dropping down. He's okay, but I just think that there's going to be another horse making their debut that is going to be better than those two coming out of that race, and obviously you agree as well.
I do agree. Iya has proven himself to be quite the quitter. His loss in Saratoga was one of those races you have to see to almost be believed. And I think obviously the first-time star that's going to get the most attention is the Chad Brown Klarvich runner on the inside, uncorrelated, on Arrogate. And I've heard this horse can actually run, so I'm not going to be surprised at a couple horses that didn't do any running. But this is a barn that has started some pretty good horses first time out over the winter at Aqueduct.
Of course, and I think that we both recognize that this one was obviously going to take some play based on connections, Chad Brown, Klarvich stables. He seems fine. I just didn't really want to take a horse at a short price in this field with not a ton of pedigree. We do see those Arrogates getting a little bit better with distance and maturity. Obviously, that's not a huge surprise. So we both ended up on the same horse, the number 5, When Love Takes Over. Obviously, the biggest price on the board right now. I don't know that that'll stick. It's still very early. But why do you like this horse?
Why don't you tell us why you like it?
All right.
It's your first time. I'm going to be nice.
You're going to be
nice? It's not going to
nice?
continue to go on for very long, so enjoy it while you can.
I know some people don't believe that you're actually nice, but I know it's in there somewhere. The number 5.
Don't ruin my image.
All right, I won't tell everyone. I wasn't really familiar with the story of Andrew Lakeman, so I did some digging on that and spent a lot of time really looking into the way that he was able to transform an accident into a career as a trainer. We haven't seen him in a little while. This horse is one that did not actually sell at that OBS sale, but did work the quarter mile, and I just really liked that sales work from him. He worked a quarter in the 21 and 3/5. Didn't sell for a ton. The More Spirits so far, they're not changing the world, but there is some pedigree on the dam side. The dam's a half to Palace Malice. So even though he sold or didn't sell a little bit cheaply because he was an RNA, I just feel as though this one could be a little bit sneaky, and if he stays anywhere near the price he is right now, I'm obviously very interested.
Yeah, there's a story on this horse. And Andrew is a trainer that had El Deal. He won with first time out. El Deal ended up being a Grade 1 winner. I believe he won the Vanderbilt up in Saratoga. Different barn when he did that, but nonetheless, he won and he was good for Andrew. And Andrew's had success with the horses he's trained in the past. We just haven't seen him, as you said, for quite a while. This horse was entered in a maiden 50, and there was a big story on him, and he was scratched, and ostensibly I believe he was scratched because they were afraid of getting him claimed. Now, you don't pay that much money for them, and you get claimed 50 and you win. I'm not sure you don't come out doing well, But they obviously like this horse, and I'm guessing that means he probably has speed. And that was one of the reasons I took him in here. You know, I wanted to look at Paxational a little bit, who they spent some money for. I thought his 2-year-old sales workout was pretty good. He didn't run well in the slop last time, and unfortunately for Eddie Barker, he gets another sloppy sealed track because, as we were sloppy yesterday, it rained a bit overnight, and unfortunately we just haven't really been able to dry out. Hopefully it's going to change a little bit and clear up at some point. Even Register, they paid $170,000. I think the reason they paid $170,000 for him is he's a half to High Oak, and at that time High Oak had that big win up in Saratoga before getting injured in the Hopeful. He's actually training again, High Oak, and he should be coming back. It's unusual to see that kind of sales. David Donk is not a trainer that you that often see with expensive yearling purchases. Be interesting to see.
I agree completely. I think we're pretty aligned in this first race.
See what happens. Race number 2, I went a little off the reservation in this race, and I'll be honest with you, Sarah, I just didn't have any idea what to do in this race. I do want to show the race that Jessica's race comes out of because she did get in some trouble, and I actually think she's the horse to beat in here. It just feels like Jorge Varas got her caught in a bad spot down the backstretch. And you're going to see as she's settling back, and listen, it's not necessarily his fault. I'm not looking to blame him. But you're going to see this horse sort of get in that pocket position, just kind of get shuffled out of the race. Right in there, gets in between horses. And I don't think that she was going to win. But right there, that's an important moment. And the race is developing. And as they're moving in front of her, she just loses all position.
Right, and you do see her overcome some of the trouble that she had early and make this run on the outside as well. Obviously never a threat to win the race, as the winner was well clear, going gate to wire and controlling the entire race. But she does get the blinkers on now. She has other races prior to this that tell me that at least she's got a good foundation going forwards. And I think we agreed on the same horses underneath, but I feel as though we were both looking for just somebody else, a little something else on top, because these are all the shorter priced horses, and she absolutely can win, but she needs to do a little bit better than this, I believe.
She needs to do better than this, but she does have those buyer figures 40 and 48 at Delaware. Now she's got to transfer Delaware form here, but you can feel, watching the trouble she had in this race, that maybe it's reasonable to assume she could have run closer to those figures here. The question is there somebody who's going to step forward? And I'm dying to know what you think is going to happen that Joey the Fish is going to step forward, other than dropping.
That's mainly the main thing, because this one, I just feel as though the big concern is obviously that she hasn't shown any early speed in her races so far. And
that's not as big a concern as the fact that she sucks?
Well, it's a concern.
Maybe that's right for this field, but she just hasn't done any running in her races, you know? Sorry to be so harsh.
No, I mean, that's totally fair. I think that the thing is, she did okay in her first time sprinting on the dirt, because you can at least say that she made up some ground after being so far back early. When she was in that route race on the turf, she did get bumped in the break, and then a horse to her inside was going to be in front of her, so she ended up getting taken back. Basically eased in that race, never really a threat to do any running, but I feel as though they kind of knew and just let it go for the day. And then last time out, when she tried dirt routing for the first time against tougher company, there was a stumble at the break. I mean, Eric was lucky to stay on because she also stumbled in, and she wasn't really persevered with there. So at least with this one, she obviously has to show something that she hasn't yet, but I think that I can make some excuses why she didn't really get involved in those route races. So with the drop and the first time routing on the dirt, if she actually breaks well, maybe she can get a little bit more in the game, but she needs to break better and she needs to get more involved.
Yeah, it's hard to say, and it's funny because I used her last time. I'm remembering that now. I think David liked her last time she ran, actually, and she just lost all chance at the start. And listen, the first time she ran against Maple Leaf Mel, so she ran against real horse that day. I wish she had done a little bit of running, but in this race, I'm certainly not going to knock anybody in this race, because I think a horse like Amanda's Folly, I feel like Amanda's Folly got second by default last time, and I'm not going to be shocked if she wins this race. I'm not going to be shocked, basically, if anybody wins. I feel the same way with Jessica's race. I'm just looking for something a little bit different. I think your points on Joey the Fish are very well taken. As far as Maze Loves Laffy, I look at this horse, and I'm looking at Amira Shishakli's horses, because her horses have been running for the last month. And she had not been winning races, and her horses really started running. And I know this is an odd horse because running at Mountaineer and Mahoning Valley, but the reality is this horse is running speed figures. They're not that far off from the kind of numbers that give her a chance in here. She's switching to a barn whose horses have all been running. She had that horse, that long shot, Liam's run good second at 21-1 the other day. And I just thought the barn's been going well. I'm looking for somebody else in here. So she's kind of a new face, and I don't see any reason that she can't be a contender in here, and the price should be fine.
Do you feel as though you're hoping that she'll wire the field with those sprint races?
It's a reasonable question. She is the speed of the speed, and it does seem like Maddie Oliver has been aggressive in situations, so there's no reason not to go. But this horse does have to get a mile. They all have to get a mile. They'll all get a mile. The question is who will get it the fastest or the least slow. Race number 3. Race number 3 had some big scratches. I think a horse that you liked was scratched in here. I could not make heads or tails of this race, to be honest with you. And, you know, the horse that's going to take the money is a horse that you and I both end up second. I think we both scratched into for second, Bella Michelle. We'll look at her race. I have trouble believing the 62 buyer. Hypnocurrency came back and ran, I think, 14 points worse than the next start. Cookie Crumbs was the favorite, is really not much horse. And I don't believe that this is a reliable 62 buyer horse. On the other hand, if she's a 52 buyer, she still might win this race.
Right, I think that's the main concern with this one being the short price to the inside. I think that this race does get a little bit easier with the scratches. Now it's a shorter field, and some of the horses that were going to be up close early are no longer players. I don't believe that 62 is indicative of her true ability, just like you do. I know that she certainly could win, but I kind of want to see it again, just like you.
Yeah, I mean, she's the horse to beat in here, and I think she's going to be a pretty substantial favorite. And you're right. It's an unusual race that didn't have a lot of pace in it to begin with, and now the two horses that, at least according to the time form pace projector, were going to be the two forward horses are both scratched. And it's going to really come down to, I think, which riders choose to be more aggressive. Jose Gomez has been more aggressive recently. It's a little hard to make Magic Miss off the slow figure first time out. I'm going to try Luna Loca in here. Trainer switch from Rick Schosberg to David Duggan, not a knock on Rick at all. This is, I think, the first one of Rick's horses that David took over. Rick retired, and David took over. He's going to start. So I ended up landing on this one without any conviction whatsoever.
It's fair enough. I looked at this one. I feel as though she kind of got the perfect trip last time. Not that she
did.
Certainly isn't going to get it again. I mean, it's totally likely to happen. I just don't know that I love that race too much as far as this field, but I don't really necessarily love anybody's recent races either, so that's more than fair. I went to the outside with Maggie T, who honestly probably could be the speed if there's a little bit of aggression shown now to the outside. This one was, I think, next in that time form pace projection behind the two that ended up scratching. The stats aren't great for Eddie Barker in general, but he does have an okay stat for horses that have won their last start. He is 20% with a very small sample size, at least so far. This one was part of that Maggie Exacta, Maggie Everywhere. Last time out, I actually had a friend who was live to the other one of the Maggies for the pick 5 that day. But this one, this is not one of my stronger opinions of the day. I think that maybe if this one just ends up getting the lead and stays on.
It's hard to overly defend anybody in this race,
right,
to be honest. So it's just one of these situations. It's especially tough for you because I think you've had a top choice scratch, and it makes it even tougher. Race number 4. My general feeling in race number 4 is I want to bet against Bourbon Chase, and we'll show Bourbon Chase running second last time, along with Wanna Winner running third. I just feel like Bourbon Chase is one of these horses. It's not that he's faced bad horses, because I think Neural Network would beat him 2 back is not impossible in tomorrow's Jerome by any stretch. I just don't feel like he's doing any significant running in here. He's just finishing second sort of by default. And given the connections, he's going to continue to take money, and I just don't think he's that good.
I don't either, and aren't you just left with this sour taste in your mouth when he's the favorite and such a heavy favorite 3 times in a row?
Yes.
Doesn't get the job done, 3 consecutive seconds. I mean, it's not as though he's running so terribly, but he's just kind of running along. He's not really doing anything significant, and obviously he's going to be a short price yet again. I'm just kind of over him.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I feel the exact same way. And we'll take a look at Lifetime of Chances race 2 races back, and I'll let you talk about why you like this horse. And I think he's just way the horse to beat here.
I think that he has reasons for why he hasn't gotten the job done yet. I mean, he's making his 4th career start. He ran a decent 3rd on debut in a very strong maiden race. We saw Don't Lose Cruz and Mariachi come back. Mariachi came back to win with an 85 Beyer. That race has been producing some next out winners. I mean, both of them were well clear of him, but even last time too, when he was running in that stakes race, I mean, he has been facing tougher company, I would say, than this field, maybe other than Bourbon Chase, but I know we don't necessarily think that he's that good. And now he gets in with a more realistic level, facing maidens yet again. I just think that he seems like the best horse in this race from what we've seen so far.
I agree. I think he's probably been frustrating. You know, I watched that race 2 back, the one we just showed, where he was second to Looms Bosley. Now, I had thought that maybe Jose Lezcano was a little bit overconfident because he broke well and let him drop back, but I don't know, because he's a little, seems to be a little bit of a lazy horse the way he's run. And I thought he ran extremely well. I thought he ran the best race in there. No knock on Looms Bosley, but he was able to control, and he was sort of victimized by that. And last time, I remember a friend of mine complaining to me and saying that Jose gave him a lax ride last time and he allowed him to lose position. I hadn't really watched it that carefully. I was on vacation. I was sort of half paying attention. So I watched it with that in mind, and I don't agree. And I think he was frustrated. I think if he watched again, he would agree with me. Jose asked this horse out of the gate. He broke really well. Jose asked him to be forward in there, and he just didn't want to be forward. I don't blame him at all, and I think that's one of the reasons that Linda is happy to stretch him out to a mile, because he's gotten lazy, and I think she's wondering, pace a little bit slower, going longer, maybe he's not going to fall out of these races, because it's not Jose Lezcano's fault. He tried last time. He just got lazy, and he didn't really sort of get it going until too late. Now, did he have some trouble adjusting to the muddy sealed track? Perhaps. He gets another wet track. I don't think he didn't handle it. Maybe he just had to make some adjustments in there. But I think he's run well in his races, and he's just been a horse who's been a little bit of a work in progress. On the other hand, he's 0 for 3. And like Bourbon Chase, I don't like it when trainers like Todd Pletcher, Linda Rice, the good trainers, there's a lot of trainers, but every horse, you know, the failures are a problem, and each failure sort of makes the horse a little bit less likable. But I do think he's had reasons to have lost in tougher spots. The horse that you have second, I have fourth, and I could have easily put second. Quick Chaos, he's sort of the fuzzy in here, and Jorge Abreu has good numbers stretching out in the dirt in general.
Yeah, you know, I really like that this one, the first 2 races were really early on in the 2-year-old season, and sometimes you can say, oh, maybe they were just a precocious 2-year-old, they were running races because they were more developed, and other horses had a little bit more growing and developing to do to catch up to their ability, so maybe they're really not going to be able to carry on and improve following that, because the competition will just be caught up to them and they'll no longer have that edge. However, when this one did come back, we did see an improvement in figures. This one finished second to What's Up Bro with a 58 Beyer. He's shown that he can move in the right direction and still continue to progress as he continues to mature. And I just thought that this one seems as though this one's heading in the right direction. I like that they've taken a little bit of time and had some patience with this horse. And listen, if you don't think that these favorites are reliable after what you've seen from them, I think that this is probably the next horse you would want to go to. Right,
because even though he's had 3 starts, it feels like at least 2 of them works in progress. His last race is a tough one to gauge, because the winner is that Caceres horse that had run a 43 Beyer first time out, ran a 74, and those are always kind of figures that you sort of roll your eyes at. But the third horse came back and improved his figure 4 points. I realize the race gapped out, but the fact that the third horse came back and legitimized that number does make me feel like it could be okay. And I agree. I probably was a little remiss. I could have had him higher as well. We'll see what happens in race number 4. A couple of scratches in race number 5. I don't think any of the scratches significantly affected the races, at least they didn't from my perspective. This was, I don't know about you, a race where I had an enormous amount of difficulty trying to come up with anybody in here. A horse that you and I both have second, Valorand. We'll take a look at this horse's last race behind My First Love, who I think won at a huge price, was like 20-1 or so. I think the reason to like this horse is that Rob Apster's horses have been running out of their skin for the last couple of weeks. But honestly, she just sort of runs a similar race every time. Contender, I didn't want to put her on top.
I know. I actually had the winner last time in some sort of multi-race sequence.
That's your first Red Board brag on the show.
I know.
A special moment to remember.
We've gotten all the way to race number 5 before I had to
I guess
my
there
own
were none
horn.
to do it, or you were waiting because this was an especially good one?
No, I just was watching that race again, and then I remembered, and I was like, oh yeah, I like that horse a little bit.
Of course.
So obviously I have to talk about it because
Right.
it's me.
Exactly.
Valerie, I guess you want to like that she's been able to show some sort of different dimensions in running style. She can go be close to the pace. She can set the pace. I do like that she was able to come from much further back than we had seen recently, take some kickback. She was really she broke okay, and she was there, and then she was kind of allowed to just drop back, but that was a more legitimate pace than what she had been facing in her 2 starts prior to that.
For sure.
So, now they're putting the blinkers on. Atras has good numbers with putting the blinkers on. Are they going to just try to go and bring back some of that early interest that she has shown
I think she'll be
beforehand?
more forward in here. I think the bottom 2 horses will be the 2 speeds in here, but I think
Right.
she'll be much more forward.
And it's also, a shorter field last time than she was facing last time too. She's fine. I think we both think that she's fine, but I want a little bit more than fine. So
Talk about she caught my eye.
yeah, she just has less chances to lose than some of these. We've seen a lot of what these horses can or can't do over time, whereas She Caught My Eyes only making her 6th career start. Everybody else has started at least 12 times or many more in the case of others. She has 2 decent figures, 3 kind of terrible ones, although one of those was on the synthetic first time out. I just feel as though she's going to probably move in the right direction at a more realistic level than she may have been facing. And I do want to say that even though those subpar figures were against tougher company, she was also sprinting versus routing. Maybe she just appreciates a little bit more distance. Maybe she's found the right barn. Maybe she's also found the right field. Yeah,
I thought she found the right field last time. She won very easily, so I don't want to be too hard on her. But Synonymous, who's not a very good turf horse, and Infringement, who's inside of her, I know she came back to win, but she's obviously not that quick. I just thought it was a tougher field. I thought the race was open to any of the even-numbered horses in here. And at the end of the day, I end up picking Miss Chimita off this race 2 back, going 1 1/8 around the 2 turns. I actually thought she ran pretty well in here. I want to show the start because she's going to break a little bit slowly, 1/2 to 3/4 of a length slow, and she gets herself all the way shuffled back close to last in here, and will end up making this wide move early in the race to sort of get into position here. And these are the kind of situations, especially with lower level horses, where it's almost like they've completely lost all chance at the start. And I actually thought she ran remarkably well in here, considering, because you watch where she is right now, it's not quite the Secretariat move in the Preakness down in Maryland, but it is sort of amazing, getting left where she was, the wide move, that by the time they get the half-mile pole, it's a 1 1/8 race, keep in mind, she ends up basically making the lead in this race. And the fact that she was able to hold on for second while the winner got a much, much easier trip. The winner's the number 6 and was able to sort of cruise the lead and set the pace. I actually thought she ran a very respectable race in here. She came back and didn't run last time. Having said that, you're talking about Norm Cash, whose horses are Lynn Cash, who they run. The horses he shipped here have run. And I thought this race was good enough to win here. Obviously, the last race is not good enough to win here. Little hit or miss, but I thought if she could run back to this race, she was the horse to beat. And he's one guy who shipped here, and he's done it effectively.
No, this was a really good effort. I watched this race as well, and I agree completely with the trouble that she had early and then making that big move and being able to sustain it as well and being around at the end. She's got some back class as a 2- and a 3-year-old. She ran 3rd behind Secret Oath forever ago. Obviously, we have not seen that kind of form from her lately, and to me, the last race was just kind of a concern as well, but it's not as though this is the most consistent group on the planet either.
Yeah, I thought she was interesting, looking for a new face. That's the first 5. We'll be back with a late pick 4 after a quick break.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Always a little remiss in thanking our sponsors at Saratoga Water. Sarah Obadwe is making her Talking Horses debut. I'm Andy Serling, and we just got a scratch. Fancy Feline is scratched out of the 8th race today. I guess that's considered a late scratch at this point. I know that's going to ruin a lot of people's days. I hope, Sarah, you can go forward in here. First-time stars versus horses with experience, and obviously the ones that have run haven't done a lot of running in here, and you've picked a firster in the 6 Barons Legacy.
Yeah, I mean, Horacio De Paz is kind of sneaky good with his first-time starters. He's 7 for 48 in dirt sprints, 15%, $2.15 ROI. I don't love that the Jess's Dreams, they're over as the older first-time starters. However, I mean, it's very early in the 3-year-old season, so I'm not giving that stat all of the credit in the world to totally write me off in here, but all 3 siblings were winners, including a 12-time winner in To the Front who faced Beverly Park, that kind of super horse that runs all the time. The other sibling won on debut with a 73 Beyer dirt sprinting, so I'm just curious to see what we get from this one. I didn't feel as though this one would be one of the shorter prices in this field, and seems like this one could be okay. Yeah,
I was scared away by Jess's Dream. I always respect Horacio's horses and his first-time stars as well. I was scared away by Jess's Dream, but you're right. A couple of the foals were okay. I mean, against this kind of company, they ran Beyers in the 70s, and that's obviously good enough to drown these horses. I like the 5 East Coast Girl. I want to show a lot of her race last time.
Oh, it's a he.
He.
Which makes no sense.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem for me going forward. Source does not break. That's the first thing you see. Source broke at least a length slow and really had to sort of be rushed up to get contention. So clearly East Coast Girl has a lot of speed if she can break sharply. She gets blinkers on, gets Lasix, obviously couldn't have it. And she's a horse that obviously something went wrong, and it is reasonable to suggest that maybe even she bled and she gets Lasix because of the way that she backed up. But the other thing that I want to show is that I know she lost by 24 lengths. She was completely eased by Jose Ortiz coming into the stretch. I mean, at this point, he's basically already given up. And I understand, she's not getting anything here, and perhaps he realized that there was a problem at this point and he did it. But you can see right there, she's already being eased at this point. So the fact that she lost by 25 lengths, it's not that that's the race she ran. She was eased out of here and would have been closer. It wouldn't have looked as ugly. And in this field, I think if she can break sharply, she can be the speed. I didn't really want the firsters particularly. I picked Derek's Medallion as the firster I took in here. A Cantheros for Rudy on the inside. I like the 10 flat workout at the 2-year-old sale. I thought this horse worked very well, though it's not particularly excited. They paid $125 for the horse and they're running for $40 first time out.
That was the big red flag for me with this one. The workout was obviously very impressive, but I don't love when they sell for more than they're being entered for. Something must be up. Yes, it's a significant amount more. I would just be a little bit skeptical of that.
I agree, except you've got sharp owners, and they made a bad buy. And you don't win as many races as Mike Dubb does by not understanding when you make a bad buy and running the horse to maiden special weight and getting your doors blown off. And maybe he's just trying to win a race in here, and that workout was good enough. On the other hand, yeah, you can get fooled by those workouts because sometimes they are not the horse that you end up basically buying. We'll see what happens in race number 6. Race number 7. Question in race number 7. The 3 Full Moon Fever will show the race from last time. Did you consider downgrading this horse? You know, we put our picks up a few days ago after Simply's performance yesterday.
I did. I would agree that I feel as though something you're going to point out is this horse had a pretty perfect setup in the last race, saving ground. Although this one did close from far back, the pace was coming back.
She kind of fall apart. This horse ran fine in here. I just don't believe the 87 Beyer.
Oh,
that's my
fair.
problem. I think the Beyer's probably 8 to 10 points high, ultimately. Like, where did it come from? And so I wonder if this is a horse that's just not as fast as that figure suggests. That's my biggest problem.
That's more than fair. For me, it was kind of like this one got to save ground and then got a perfect split to switch lanes and be on the outside. I will just say that this horse has been very consistent as of late. This is a reclaim for the Hennig Barns, so this is a horse that they had in the past.
Well, it's not a reclaim. It's just switch barns. It's Windy Leah, and they give the horse to Mark when they're in the Nairo tracks.
My mistake. But I would like to see consistent form with a horse like this because some of the others in here, they just have not really been inconsistent form as of late. The race the other day, though, does it concern me quite a bit, but
I was against this horse.
Yeah,
I thought this was a much tougher bunch than he's meeting than he met last time out. And I think there's a lot of different options. Near Wild Banker obviously ran well for Rudy last time. He's impossible. We both picked the number 5 Advanced Strategy. I'll let you talk about him, and then I'll show a stat after you're done talking.
So we last saw this horse on November 17th, going the 6 furlongs, finishing 3rd behind Sheriff Bianco, who is a horse that we saw running on the turf for the majority of his career. Finally switched to the dirt. Turns out.
No, finally he got lucky and he got rained off the turf. And
Yes,
Linda
there we
shouldn't
go.
take a lot of credit for this one. She got
At least
the horse
kept him
rained
there.
off, right? Wesley Ward must be looking at him and going, what
Whoops.
an idiot. I can't believe I never ran him in the dirt after finishing second to a stakes horse in his debut on the dirt. But anyway,
Right.
I
Well,
digress.
Linda did claim this horse out of that race. Prior to that, the majority of his career was on the turf, but he does have some dirt route races in early 2021 that are absolutely good enough to compete here if he can get back to that kind of form. 2/3, 1 win. Linda's great first off the claim, 24%. So I just thought that this one was kind of the horse that you wanted at least a bit of a better price, because people might see the turf form, they might see the race last time and be like, oh, we're going 6 furlongs and then first off the layout.
I don't think he's going to be 6-1.
No, you think he's going to be much lower?
He makes so much sense. I mean, he's stretching out. He's a router type. I'll show you a stat for Linda Rice, which is actually kind of amazing. At Aqueduct, off the claim, stretching him out with sprints to routes, she's won almost 50%. Now, we're talking about horses that are under $6, but she's getting them home at a high percentage. She's got huge numbers off the claim in general, stretching horses out, particularly here. And if you look at this horse, he's a router. And you have to feel like they ran last time a sprint. The race came up. He took a shot in there. As you say, he has no chance against Sheriff Bianco, even Unique Unions, who's improved a lot as well. And he really didn't run that badly. He's got those back races. And I get the feeling looking at it, and I think Linda's one of the shrewder claiming trainers out there, that she looked at this horse and said, this is a good winter horse for me. This horse can run on the turf, but this horse is fine on the dirt. And I'm going to, $45,000, I can make money with this horse. So I think he's very, very logical in here. I also think that 6% is really interesting. I'll show this race at Saratoga. And I know, listen, obviously, he had this field over a barrel. He got a very good trip, but he ran a huge race. And you look, they shipped him up to Finger Lakes. He didn't run that badly up there. He easily beat Simply for what it's worth. And then he meets horses like Curlin's Legacy and Truancy. They're pretty good. Truancy's running an open allowance race, I noticed, I think, next Wednesday up at down at Gulfstream for Barkley. I think he fits very, very well in here, and I considered putting him on top, especially when we both picked a 5. I thought I could go to 8-5 and just pick another horse in here. I think he's very, very dangerous.
Are you ready for my second humble brag?
Go ahead.
I picked him this day too, and this performance was, superb. He was so much the
That
best
was a
in
red
this race.
board. I was a humble brag. I think it was, first of all, there was nothing humble about it, number one. I picked
Because
him
you're so
second.
humble?
I picked him second. I never claimed to be humble, number one. I picked him second and realized, it's funny, there's times, especially doing these jobs, and especially when you're on the air a lot during the afternoon, as we are all day long in Saratoga and much of the year, where you start looking at a race more and more as you get close to it, and you say to yourself, why didn't I pick this horse? This is really the right one to pick, because I think the horse I picked at the top was a short price in the air, and I realized 6% made a lot of money. I think I started out, either to pick 5 or pick 4, using this horse and probably getting blown out at some point very much later, feeling smart and getting nothing. I think he makes a lot of sense in here. I think he just is, and you obviously have him third, so you don't disagree. We'll see what happens in race number 7. Seems like a fairly competitive race. Race number 8 is a bringback. The first person, and this will come as a shock to absolutely nobody that knows him at all, the first person to complain to me about the cancellation of the fog was Christophe Clement, because Can't Hurry Love was coming up in the next race. And I think it's Carbon and Can't Hurry Love. We'll go 2 back for Carbon and the last race for Can't Hurry Love. I just thought Can't Hurry Love was going to be the controlling speed in this race. And Christophe, for all your whining, you're probably even happier that you caught a wet track for this horse to run back than a dry track. And I feel like one of these 2 horses kind of has to win this race. I went to the fact that this horse has a pace advantage and that Carbon has run second 2 times in a row, but I think he's run well in both of those races. There's nothing wrong with him.
That was my exact thinking as well. I think it's really those two, and I would be pretty surprised if anybody else was able to win this race. I think of all the races today, this is the one where I would have the most conviction that it's these two horses, and I know that you agree as well. And for the exact same reasons, I just thought that Can't Hurry Love would be the one in front of Carbon. They've taken turns beating each other before, but I think that there's just a pace advantage where Can't Hurry Love could find herself alone on the lead, and if she does, I see these two as the top two. I think it's going to be 3-2, or if somebody else shows a little bit of speed, maybe it's 2-3. But there's not a lot going on in the rest of this field for me.
I agree. I think Big Bean Christine is taking a big step forward here. Cinderella's Claw is not impossible, and she does figure to be stalking the 3, and she has a bit of an excuse. She got caught up in that tough pace last time out, and I think her prior 2 races are good enough to give her a chance in here. She's like the 3rd horse, but I think, like you, I have a little bit of a gap between her and the other ones. I'm extremely annoyed in the last race because this is a bring-back race. There's some new faces in here. And I liked No Burn, who was running last time, and I was surprised to see Oscar scratch this horse. Now, did he not want to run in the slop? Because he ran somebody. He's run well in the slop before. He had an outside post last time, and now he gets an inside post. I scratched into the same horse you picked, who's going to be a much shorter price, who I liked last, but I thought the no Burn would be a bit of a price in here. And we both end up with Win It, who, can we show the Win It video first, if you guys don't mind? Because I wanted to show the early part. I had it for a second. I move it up so we both picked the horse. I wanted to show the early part of Discovery. And I thought he ran very well in here. This race was dominated on the front end. He didn't break. He made that big move by Kendrick, and I don't blame Kendrick. He's trying to get in position. He's done this before with him. But the problem with Win It, and one of the reasons I want to pick against him, he doesn't break. He never breaks. And even though he got away with it, and I think he's better at the 1-turn mile today that he won at 2 back, this is a much tougher field than the horses he beat that day.
Right, and with him too, I mean, we've seen him control a very slow early pace. We've seen him not be anywhere close to the lead because he creates his own trouble at the start of these races. So after a while, you do get frustrated with picking these horses, especially at shorter prices. And as you mentioned, he's going to be a shorter price now. So I do agree that I like the cutback slightly for him as well. And he's pretty good, but he needs to get it together a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, as the going gets tougher, you can't compromise yourself all the time and expect to win these races. If John can get him to break, and I'm sure it's extremely frustrating to him as well, he's going to be tough in here. I want to look at the I Am the Law Curlin's Wisdom race last time out. This was one of these things where Joel Rosario was determined to go to the front, and he's extremely good when he does that. And it was kind of surprising. And I don't know where this race came from, but if he runs back to it, he's going to be very tough. But I almost wonder if he's better when he's controlling, and it's hard for him to be the controlling speed in here, except for the fact that Win It always gets left. And with the scratch of the 1, unless Uncle Moonlight sends hard, which he could, this horse might find himself in front again, especially if Win It can't get out of the gate. And I think that will make him more dangerous in here than I originally thought, because I'm not a fan, and you're not a fan either, particularly.
Do you think that the 9 Balthazar is going to show some early interest as well and possibly be a part of that pace? I don't know that he's quite fast enough, but...
Wait a second. You mean the 9? No, you said Balthazar.
Oh, sorry. Yes, my mistake. I'm looking at the wrong thing. My bad. Never mind me.
No, I think he's going to be
myself.
forward. And I think Curlin's Wisdom makes a lot of sense. I think he's run very well in his races. He's just in good form for Linda. And one thing about Linda Rice is when her horses get in good form, she's as good a trainer as there is at getting them to keep that form going forward. And he has really turned his career around. I think he's super logical and should be in a reasonably good spot towards the outside. I guess the fuzzy in here is the horse you have second, Uncle Moonlight. We'll show his last race, let you talk about him. I do not like this horse today.
I think that this was that race where it was on Belmont Stakes.
This was my birthday. I just want to point that out. Since you're red boarding,
yes,
I'm just going to say this was my birthday.
It was Andy's birthday.
Okay, it was a very big day. It wasn't Belmont Day, it was my birthday.
Didn't they bring you a cake?
They did. It was a really touching moment.
I texted you.
It was really nice.
I said happy birthday. So Uncle Moonlight got the win on your birthday. The only thing that was happening that day at all. There was no stakes race or anything.
Nothing, but anyway.
But I think that was when people were kind of claiming that there was this inside bias to the track very early on. And as the day went on, suddenly that was like, oh, well, just kidding. But
so what do we think? Do we think that I'm glad you brought it up. Do we think the track changed, or do we think that we just sort of jump to conclusions, because I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, and I think that it's fair to ask that question, especially if you are interested in this horse, because you could say that he just benefited from setting the pace and being inside that day. But I do like that he at least has wins where he's done other things early, at least a little bit. He's had experience with an off track. He's been able to not have that same sort of complete control of a race before and still do okay. Obviously, that race last time, best figure he's ever run. I don't necessarily think he's going to repeat it, but I think that we haven't seen him since, and he could still be a player. I don't think that he's necessarily the best, but I think that he could still be a player in here.
I generally don't like horses that run a big race, and his form was improving, and for a very good trainer, and I'm a huge fan of Michelle Nevins, but I'll get to her numbers in a second, but I don't like when they run a race like that and they disappear for 6-7 months. It's not like Michelle said, oh, I finally got him to run a good race, let me leave him in the barn for the next 7 months.
Right.
Something went wrong,
right.
And those horses in general don't come back, and looking at Michelle's stats, 5 to 9 month layoffs on the dirt. She's 9 for 59, 15%, 88% ROI. Off a win, she's 0 for 7 with 4 hitting the board. So as much as I'm a big fan of Michelle's, and listen, he's a decent price. If you like the horse, you're supposed to bet him regardless of this stuff. I don't trust it, and I'm not sure what to do with the early races on that card that day, and I wonder if maybe the track helped him a bit. But he's sort of the real fuzzy in this race because he ran a race that could win this race. And he's a good trainer, and he was improving, and it's not like it's out of the realm of the possibility that he runs well again in here. Interesting race. Sarah,
agree.
great job. Enjoyed having you here.
Thanks. You were pretty nice.
See you more. I'm occasionally nice. I'm kind of tired.
Don't be as nice next time.
Don't worry, I get much worse as time goes on. As anyone who knows me knows, head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, use the promo code MATCH200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Play through Naira Bets, support racing in New York. We have the third pick 4 in race number 3. Races 2, 3, and 6 will all have pick 4s in today's 9-race card. We also have a $15 bonus if you opt in over at Naira Bets, and you bet at least $75 here and Tampa Bay as well. Head on over and do that. And last but not least, or maybe least, depending on how you feel, 2:30 to 5:30, the action here, Oaklawn Park, and the 9th from Tampa. Sarah, thanks again. Great job. Chris Griffin, hopefully he'll do another great job today. He's doing pretty well since he came to join us here at the Big A. We always enjoy hearing Chris's race calls and enjoy Chris in general. He's up next with a reprise, Scratches and Changes. Have a great day.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Live Racing from Aqueduct. The track is sloppy. 30 minutes till race number 1. Here are today's scratches and changes. Race 1 is the start of the early pick 5. The 2 is a Ridgeling. 2 is a Ridgeling in today's first. Race 2 kicks off the early pick 4. It's clear. No changes in today's second. Race 3. Scratch the 2, Honest Banker. Scratch the 4, Curlin's Choir. Scratch the 2 and the 4 in today's third. Race 4 is the start of the pick 6, and the pick 6 starts in today's fourth race, and post time will be 1:50 p.m. Race 5, it's the start of the late pick 5. Post time will be 2:22 p.m. Scratch the 3, Via Regia. Scratch the 5, Gagliano. Scratch the 3 and the 5 in today's fifth. Race 6, start of the late pick 4. Post time will be 2:52 p.m. Scratch the 1, Tater and Tot. In race 7, post time will be 3:24. The 4 is 1 pound over. The 7, 1 pound overweight.